Hidden in the depths of Tolkien's legendarium lies a theory so startling, it challenges everything we thought we knew about Middle-earth. What if two of its most enigmatic figures, Tom Bombadil, the mysterious master of the Old Forest, and the Witch King of Angmar, Lord of the Nazgul, were actually two halves of the same being? Some would call this theory madness. After all, how could the jolly figure who dances through the Old Forest singing nonsense rhymes share any connection with the terror of Angmar, whose very name struck fear into the hearts of the bravest warriors? Yet in Tolkien's world, the deepest truths often hide behind seemingly impossible paradoxes. Consider this. Throughout the entire history of Middle-earth, these two immensely powerful beings never once crossed paths. They existed as perfect opposites, one bringing life and joy, the other dealing in death and despair. Each operated outside the normal rules of power that bound even the mighty Valar. But what if this wasn't a coincidence? What if their mutual avoidance wasn't chance, but necessity? What follows is an examination of evidence that might reveal one of the most shocking secrets in Tolkien's work, a truth hidden in plain sight for nearly 70 years. And like all great mysteries, this one begins at the very beginning, with the curious question of where these beings truly came from. The first and most compelling evidence for this theory lies in how deliberately Tolkien obscured both characters' origins. In a world where the author meticulously documented the beginnings of nearly every significant being, from the Valar to the smallest hobbit, the absence of clear origins for both Tom Bombadil and the Witch King stands out as deeply significant. Tom Bombadil represents one of the deepest mysteries in Tolkien's entire mythology. Consider his own words. "Don't you know my name yet? That's the only answer. Tell me, who are you? Alone, yourself, and nameless. But you are young, and I am old. Eldest, that's what I am. Mark my words, my friends. Tom was here before the river and the trees. Tom remembers the first raindrop and the first acorn. He made paths before the big people and saw the little people arriving. He was here before the kings and the graves and the barrow wights. When the elves passed westward, Tom was here already, before the seas were bent. He knew the dark under the stars when it was fearless, before the Dark Lord came from outside. These aren't mere boasts. They're clues to an identity so ancient it predates not just the awakening of the elves, but potentially the shaping of Arda itself. Yet he appears nowhere in the Silmarillion, where the creation of the world and its earliest beings is chronicled in exacting detail. In fact, among all of Tolkien's extensive writings about the First Age and earlier times, Tom Bombadil's name remains conspicuously absent. For an author who delighted in connecting every thread of his vast literary universe, this silence speaks volumes. Even more telling is how the Witch King's origins mirror this mysterious void. While we know he was once a human king who received one of the 9 rings, his original identity remains shrouded in shadow. Men proved easier to ensnare. Those who used the 9 rings became mighty in their day, kings, sorcerers, and warriors of old. They obtained glory and great wealth, yet it turned to their undoing. They had, as it seemed, unending life, yet life became unendurable to them. They could walk, if they would, unseen by all eyes in this world beneath the sun, and they could see things in worlds invisible to mortal men. But too often, they beheld only the phantoms and delusions of Sauron. And one by one, sooner or later, according to their native strength and to the good or evil of their wills in the beginning, they fell under the thraldom of the ring that they bore and under the domination of the One, which was Sauron's. And they became forever invisible save to him that wore the ruling ring, and they entered into the realm of shadows. The Nazgul were they, the ring-wraiths, the enemy's most terrible servants. Darkness went with them, and they cried with the voices of death. Of all the Nazgul, the Witch King alone wielded power far beyond what any ring of power should have granted. Yet Tolkien, who dedicated entire chapters to the lineages of minor nobles in Numenor, never revealed this mighty king's name or realm. Why would such crucial details about Sauron's greatest servant be omitted, unless their revelation might expose an even deeper truth? These parallel mysteries point to an extraordinary possibility. Both beings lack clear origins because they were once a single entity, perhaps a Maya or another powerful spirit, that was split into two opposing forces. This division might have occurred during one of the great cataclysms of the First Age, perhaps during the breaking of the world, or even earlier, during the music of the Ainur itself. Like the two trees of Valinor, one gold, one silver, these divided halves retained immense power while reflecting opposite aspects of their original nature. They represent perfect opposites, one remaining pure and bound to the natural world, the other fallen and corrupted by darkness. But these parallel mysteries of origin pale in comparison to an even more telling pattern: the curious way these two powers moved through Middle-earth, or rather, how carefully they avoided each other. Perhaps the most striking evidence supporting the connection between Tom Bombadil and the Witch King lies in the curious way their territories never overlap. This geographical separation goes beyond mere coincidence, suggesting an ancient understanding or cosmic balance that keeps these two forces apart. Like the division between light and shadow, their domains maintain a precise distance that speaks of necessity rather than chance. Consider first the peculiar nature of Tom Bombadil's domain. Goldberry, the River Woman's daughter, describes it thus: "He is the master of wood, water, and hill." Then all this strange land belongs to him? "No, indeed," she answered, and her smile faded. "That would indeed be a burden," she added in a low voice, as if to herself. "The trees and the grasses and all things growing or living in the land belong each to themselves. Tom Bombadil is the master. No one has ever caught old Tom walking in the forest, wading in the water, leaping on the hilltops under light and shadow. He has no fear. Tom Bombadil is master." Notice how carefully this passage defines the boundaries of Tom's power. He is master, but does not own the land, a crucial distinction that suggests his authority stems from something more fundamental than mere possession. His influence extends to precisely defined borders, as if following the terms of some primordial agreement, etched into the very foundations of Middle-earth itself. This self-imposed isolation becomes even more significant when we consider Tom's immense power. Here is a being who can command ancient trees with a word, banish evil spirits with a song, and remain utterly untouched by the One Ring's corruption. Yet he chooses to remain within his boundaries, not from fear or weakness, but as if bound by some deeper purpose or ancient pact. Now let's examine the Witch King's movements throughout the Third Age and how they curiously avoid overlapping with Tom Bombadil's territory. Despite commanding vast armies and wielding terrible sorcery, the Lord of the Nazgul exhibits an equally peculiar pattern of behavior. From his fortress of Khan Dum in Angmar, he waged war against the northern kingdoms for centuries, yet never once did his forces venture into the Old Forest, despite its strategic value. This avoidance becomes particularly striking when we examine a map of Middle-earth. The Old Forest sits at a crucial junction between the ancient kingdoms of Arnor and the lands that would become the Shire. It offers perfect cover for armies, commanding views of key river crossings and excellent staging grounds for attacks against the Dunedain. By all military logic, it should have been one of the Witch King's primary targets. Yet throughout his centuries-long campaign to destroy Arnor, the Witch King carefully steered his forces around this territory. Even his Barrow Wights, spirits bound to his will, cluster at the edges of Tom's domain, but never penetrate its heart. This pattern continues into the War of the Ring. When hunting for the One Ring, the Nazgul sweep across Eriador, but conspicuously avoid the Old Forest. despite knowing the ring-bearer passed through that region. Some might argue this mutual avoidance stems from opposing natures: dark avoiding light, corruption shunning purity. But this explanation falls short when we consider how eagerly the forces of evil typically seek to corrupt and destroy places of power. Sauron's servants specifically targeted havens of light and nature throughout Middle-earth's history: the Two Trees, Doriath, Lothlorien, the Shire itself. Only the Old Forest remained inexplicably exempt from this pattern. The true explanation may be far more profound. If Tom Bombadil and the Witch King were indeed once a single being, their separation might necessitate maintaining physical distance. Like opposite poles of a magnet, they may be fundamentally unable to occupy the same space without risking some form of cosmic catastrophe. At the Council of Elrond, the wise briefly considered sending the One Ring to Bombadil for safekeeping. However, they dismissed this idea, not because of any fear of the Witch King, but because Tom would not have fought to protect it. As Gandalf explained, Bombadil would be indifferent to the ring's fate, making it inevitable that Sauron's forces would eventually find it. In this light, the careful dance of domains between Tom Bombadil and the Witch King takes on new meaning. Their mutual avoidance wasn't just habit or coincidence. It was an essential maintenance of cosmic balance, preventing the reconnection of two halves of a sundered whole. A reunion that might have consequences beyond imagining for all of Middle-earth. Yet their careful territorial dance hints at something even more fundamental: the very nature of their powers themselves, which reflect each other with an impossible perfection. The most compelling evidence for the connection between Tom Bombadil and the Witch King lies in their powers, not in their similarities, but in their perfect opposition. Like light and shadow, day and night, their abilities represent exact inversions of each other, suggesting they might have originated from the same source before being split into opposing forces. Tom's power manifests through song and harmony with the natural world. His seemingly nonsensical verses carry profound power. Hey doll, merry doll, ring a dong dillo, ring a dong, hop along, fal lal the willow, Tom Bomb, jolly Tom, Tom Bombadillo. These aren't mere rhymes, they are expressions of fundamental power over reality itself. When Tom sings, the very essence of Middle-earth responds. Old Man Willow, a tree so ancient and malevolent that its evil had seeped into the ground around it, yields instantly to Tom's commands. Most significantly, he demonstrates the ability to banish spirits and dispel darkness through song. Get out, you old wight, vanish in the sunlight, shrivel like the cold mist, like the winds go wailing, out into the barren lands far beyond the mountains. Come never here again, leave your barrow empty. Lost and forgotten be, darker than the darkness, where gates stand forever shut, till the world is mended. The barrow wights themselves present a fascinating connection. These spirits, originally bound by the Witch King's power, flee instantly from Tom's presence. This suggests not just opposing powers, but a deeper recognition, as if these ancient spirits sense in Tom an authority that supersedes even their master's control. Their reaction hints at an ancient hierarchy, one that predates their corruption by the Witch King. In stark contrast, the Witch King's powers represent a perfect inversion of these harmonious abilities. Where Tom brings life through song, the Lord of the Nazgul spreads death through terrible silence. His infamous black breath doesn't just harm the body, it corrupts the very spirit, sending victims into a darkness from which few return. Where Tom's presence makes flowers bloom and trees sing, the Witch King's approach withers crops and turns water to ice. His very voice spreads terror and despair. A great black shape against the fires beyond he loomed up, grown to a vast menace of despair. Their relationship with the One Ring provides perhaps the most telling evidence of their connected nature. Tom treats the ring with complete indifference, not resistance or struggle, but a fundamental immunity to its power that even Gandalf found remarkable. Tom held up the ring and laughed. For a moment, the hobbits noticed nothing strange about this. Then they gasped. There was Tom's big brown hand, and the ring still hanging upon it. But Tom was not wearing it. He held it up, and then his other hand went through it. The ring, which could corrupt even the wisest and mightiest in Middle-earth, had no more effect on Tom than a passing breeze. This wasn't just resistance. It was as if the ring's power simply couldn't interface with whatever fundamental force Tom represented. Similarly, the Witch King's relationship with his ring of power defied the normal rules. While the other Nazgul were enslaved through their rings, the Witch King's power grew far beyond what any ring of power should have granted. By the Third Age, he had become a force of nature in his own right, wielding powers that even Gandalf, a Maya of immense strength, regarded with dread. This perfect opposition suggests a compelling possibility. When this original entity encountered Sauron's corruption, possibly through one of the 9 rings, it underwent a fundamental split. The pure, naturalistic aspects coalesced into Tom Bombadil, while the corrupted, power-seeking aspects became the Witch King. Tom's immunity to the ring and the Witch King's supernatural might aren't separate phenomena. They're 2 expressions of the same fundamental power, now divided against itself. This understanding transforms our view of both characters. Tom's jolly songs and the Witch King's terrible cries become 2 sides of the same primordial voice. His mastery over nature and the Witch King's corruption of it represent the same power turned to opposite purposes. But perhaps the most compelling evidence for this connection lies not in their powers or their domains, but in the very words of prophecy that foretold the Witch King's end. Throughout The Lord of the Rings, few prophecies carry as much weight as the Witch King's famous boast, "No living man may hinder me." While readers have long understood its literal fulfillment through Éowyn and Merry, the prophecy's precise wording hints at a deeper truth. Consider its peculiar phrasing, not that no man could hinder him, but that no man may, suggesting a cosmic law rather than mere physical limitation. If the Witch King was indeed one half of a divided being, this prophecy might be acknowledging a fundamental truth, that only his other half, Tom Bombadil, who is explicitly described as not being a man, could truly end his existence. In defeating the Witch King, Éowyn and Merry unknowingly enacted a cosmic compromise, a way for fate to resolve the prophecy without requiring the ultimate sacrifice of forcing these 2 sundered halves back together. That it took both a woman of noble birth and a humble hobbit to defeat the Witch King speaks to another of Tolkien's recurring themes. The idea that world-changing events often require the union of seemingly opposite forces. Just as Tom and the Witch King represent the extremes of nature's power, Éowyn and Merry represent the joining of Rohan's ancient nobility with the Shire's innocent strength. Their victory thus mirrors, in miniature, the greater pattern of division and unity that runs through the entire story. This reading aligns perfectly with Tolkien's love of duality throughout his work. Consider how he paired opposing forces throughout his legendarium. Gandalf and Saruman, representing wisdom, turned to different purposes, Galadriel and Shelob embodying feminine power in light and shadow. Each pair demonstrates how a single force or quality can manifest in radically different ways. The connection between Tom Bombadil and the Witch King would represent the ultimate expression of this pattern, a primordial being split into pure nature and corrupted power. Even Tolkien's deliberate ambiguity about both characters supports this interpretation. In Letter 144, he explicitly states, "Even in a mythical age there must be some enigmas, as there always are. Tom Bombadil is one intentionally." Perhaps the reason Tolkien never revealed this connection lies in its earth-shattering implications. The idea that one of Middle-earth's most beloved characters shares his essence with its most terrible servant would fundamentally reshape how we understand the entire legendarium. This theory offers compelling explanations for many of Tolkien's deliberate mysteries. It transforms Tom's jolly demeanor into a mask-hiding tragic knowledge and reveals the Witch King's prophecy as an acknowledgement of his own fractured existence. Most importantly, it embodies Tolkien's love of mythological depth and intentional mystery, suggesting deeper truths about the nature of good and evil, power and corruption, and the price of maintaining balance in a world threatened by darkness. As with all the best mysteries in Tolkien's work, the answer may have been hiding in plain sight all along. In the curious way Tom dances through his domain, in the Witch King's carefully worded prophecy, and in the vast empty spaces on the map where these two mighty beings never quite crossed paths. Sometimes the greatest secrets lie not in what is said, but in the silence between the words, waiting for those who dare to listen.